This is the day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Welcome to Table Talk at the House of Bread. We're delighted you've joined us this evening, and we're blessed to have one of our members who's involved in real estate. I wanted to share with you this evening the opportunity to know about the importance of your home, whether you're selling, whether you're buying. And so before we begin, let's just have a word of prayer. Gracious and glorious God, we thank you for this day and for this opportunity to gather with this conversation. We pray, Lord, thy blessings upon it, that you may get the glory and your people might be edified. In the wonderful, marvelous name of Jesus Christ do we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Ed Roulhac, I am delighted that you have taken the time to come and share this time with us. These are challenging times, and as a homeowner and as one who's lived in this community, and we see sales signs, and we know that in many ways this is a seller's market. And we wanted to provide our members with information that is relevant to all of us. So first of all, tell me a little bit about yourself and how you became so involved in real estate.
Well, prior to real estate, I was a principal, teacher in the education field. I retired in 2015, and I still had the inner drive to be of service. And so I thought of some occupations that I could help and serve. And I thought about real estate, which I graduated in 1971. I can't believe it's that long, in banking, insurance, and real estate. I have associates in that field. So I decided to use my education that I had acquired and go back into the real estate field. And I've been able to help people, which is my drive, and that's my focus.
So what realtor are you involved with?
I'm involved with Berkshire Hathaway Home Services, Fox and Roach Realtors.
So tell us again in terms of some of the things that people need to be aware of, whether they're selling or whether they're buying.
Okay, if they are selling, they need to have a consultation first with an agent to go over their goals, and also to look at the marketplace, and look at comparative houses out there so that they can find the right price to go on the market. If they're selling, they need to have their house staged properly, outside and inside, pictures taken, videos, so that they can market their house. We market it on the multiple listing service. And then we market to buyers, the right buyer for their house, meaning people looking for the property of their choice that matches these sellers. We also have consultation throughout the process. Once the buyer wants the house, we work with the seller. We share information that's pertinent, and we work through the issues and maybe some obstacles to getting the house sold. So it's a seamless process. We value the client. I work 24/7. That means that if the seller or the client as a buyer has a question or issue, I'm available to work for them 24/7.
So when it comes to making an offer as well as purchasing a home, what is your feeling in terms of making sure that your offer is in keeping with the house that is valued for?
Okay, the price, once the price is set, and then the buyer likes the house and wants to place an offer, in this market right now, houses are selling higher once they're listed than the asking price. So right now the buyer has the opportunity to place an offer if they like the house. They can place an offer for the asking price, or they can place it above the asking price. Right now, it's a seller's market right now, so buyers are in a competitive environment. So if they like the house, they make the offer. They need to do their homework. They need to find out about the property to make sure there's no liens, to make sure that there's no problems. They have to have a title search done. We have an in-house firm, Trident Mortgage Services, that will check out for the title and easements and things like that. So, if the buyer likes a house, make an offer.
So what about the interest rates? How are the interest rates running now?
Okay, right now the interest rates are low, which is a good thing. So so a buyer is getting a good deal right now. They can get as low as 3% on a loan. So it's it is a good time. So if a buyer has a good credit score and they have the cash, and for the down payment, the interest rates right now are very low.
What about this whole matter of refinancing your home? Is that something that is valuable to individuals right now?
Well, I think for the refinancing, that's up to the individual owner of the property. Some owners want to have some work done around the house. Some owners, if they have a high interest rate now, they want to refinance it lower. So if they have an interest rate at 5%, say, for example, and right now the rates are 3%, it's a good time for them to refinance. Also, they might want to refinance and go from a 30-year loan to 15 years.
So what has been the fulfillment in your journey in this initiative?
Well, from the classroom, going back to school, I had to go back to school to learn another field. And so the fulfillment is that I've been able to work with clients, serve them, answer their questions, find out their needs, find out their goals, and work on their behalf. So, it's been a fulfilling job, really like a vocation, it's a mission to serve that I've been able to do.
We have several realtors at the church here, and one of the things we continue to say, location, location, location. What do you think about location, those words?
Location is very important. I think everybody wants to have peace of mind when they go to their home and they shut the door. They want to be able, in a neighborhood environment where they have peace of mind and they feel safe. They want to be in an area where there's good neighbors, people are friendly, and so location is very, very important. Also, a person wants to be in an area where there's no climate problems, there's no industrial problems around them. They want to make sure that that environment is very, very good for them and for their family and their children.
So I know that you and we have adult children, but for younger families in terms of education and schools, what is your thought there?
That's very important. Schools are of primary importance because parents want their children to have a good education. They want their children to be able to go to and from school safely. They want the school to have high standards where their children will get an education. Schools is very, very important because of the safety inside of the schools should be of utmost importance. Parents send their children to school to learn, and they want schools that can educate their children in the safest climate possible.
As a result of this coronavirus, we have seen many shortages of materials, and the persons are selling a home in terms of making those necessary repairs, or for that matter, even the seller. How have you experienced this whole matter of the lack of materials and the high cost of materials now, even as persons look at selling their homes?
Well, I think as a former educator, children need the books and whatever it's that they need to get the job done, and the materials. Teachers definitely need to have the right resources in order to educate the children. Because of the pandemic, there's been this online learning. I have two grandgirls that have been stay home, and they've been on the computer every day. Their parents have been very good with making sure that they are online and for doing the lessons. So, with the pandemic, it's caused a lot of in-house learning. But once they get back in school, the schools should have the resources. The powers that be should make sure that the teachers have what they need to teach the children. And as a former teacher, I've had to go into my pocket in order to have things for my students, and I know teachers still are doing that. So there's still a problem there with making sure that there's always the resources there.
I'm also part of the Montgomery County Housing Authority, where I serve as vice chairperson, and also part of Interfaith Housing Alliance. And we have found that affordable housing in Montgomery County is very difficult to find.
Yes.
And so when we talk about the average price of a home in Montgomery County, what's the average price in Montgomery County?
Well, average price, $300,000 range, $400,000 range. It could be a little less, it could be more. But Montgomery County, yes, there's a high price tag on properties. But there's programs for affordable housing too. The thing is that as an agent, I can share information, I can research information for someone who has a price range. Their budget calls for maybe $200,000, not the $300,000, $400,000 range. Well, there's probably with something out there, things out there that can help them. So part of my job as an agent is also to do the research to help them out.
So as a former teacher and principal, and you have a heart for people, where do you see God in your journey in terms of how you've been able to transition from the classroom to being a realtor and doing other things that benefit the lives of people? How do you see God playing in your life in that regard?
Well, God has always been with me. I praise God and thank God every day. Changing from one field to another, there was some stress involved. There was some thinking that, oh, maybe I should do this. But I just prayed to God to help guide me like He has through my challenges and my achievements. And so God is number one, foremost. With helping a person to find the right house, God is in there to help that family. So for me, my strength is like Job. God gives, God take us away. But here I am. Even though things, here I am, and I feel comfortable in what I've done and making the change. So God is number one in my life.
One of the reasons why we have sought to invite persons like yourself and others who share God's love, not necessarily in the church, but in other areas of life. And this matter of home ownership is so important, particularly for African Americans. Owning a home is crucial.
Yes.
And I remember growing up, and we rented for a number of years. And so, I've never rented. I've always had a desire to purchase a home. And I'm grateful that my sons and daughters now have their own homes. But that's always the case with many African Americans. So talk about the importance of home ownership.
Well, one of the biggest investments is owning a home. Over the years, it gives a person family value. It's an asset. It's an asset that families need to pursue. There's a lot of advantages with owning a house too. There's an intrinsic feeling when someone owns their own property. They turn that key and they're going to their own house. You know, there's intrinsic value for a person to own a house. I look back and in my background, I lived in a tenement building as a child. My grandmother, she had foresight. She wanted a house for her grandchildren, for her daughter. So God bless her. She had an insurance policy. She passed on and went home, and there was enough money there that and now enabled my parents, especially my mom. That was her mom, to buy a house. And I remember the look at my mother's face when we closed and we went into the house, and it's just the pride that she had, you know, from moving from a tenement building and renting to that house. So once again, it gives its value to a person. And every time that my grandmother went to church on Sunday, she saw the man, gave him the money for the insurance policy, and God led her to do that, because she felt that she wanted something for her daughter and her 7 children. I was one of the 7. And she wanted her to have a house. Now, my mother could have used that money for something else. She could have, my mother and father could have used that money and not buy a house, but my mother stuck to it. Her mother wanted her to have a house of her own. And so I think for people, especially African Americans and minorities, they, you know, take that money that you get. If you get the money, buy the house. If you inherit the money, buy the house. If you're working, which most of our hard-working people do, put aside 10% of the money. Just put it like building fund, just like the church has a building fund. You know, but put the money aside so that's your down payment in the future. So I think that having a down payment is very, you know, very important. But there's programs out there that will help families if the down payment is not large. But there's programs out there and people that can assist them. Hope I answered that question.
You did, and it's really interesting because this conversation is so meaningful to me, and prayer is meaningful to someone else, because it also provides the opportunity to reflect upon God's blessings. And I remember when I bought my first home, did not make enough money at that time to qualify for the mortgage. I had to get an extra job. And the home we bought was 5804 Larchwood Avenue. I remember that like it was yesterday. And then from there, we moved to 4929 Woodcrest Avenue, Winfield. And then from there, from Winfield, we moved to Anderson Street, 6935 Anderson. And now we have moved to Montgomery County. And I reflect upon those days. And something else you said that stuck to my mind in terms of milestones. So there's some events I remember and give God thanks for. When I got married, my sons finished college, or the church being called as pastor. This is my second pastorate. So many events I remember, but also remember not only purchasing a home, I remember the last time that we were able to pay off the mortgage. And I did something for my wife, Tanya, that you know. I made a plaque. That plaque still sits in our home. It's not a plaque. It's kind of a memento that says on this date we were able to finalize our mortgage. And I've passed that so many times, and I give God thanks that has happened. And I think, again, how God blesses you in those regards. And growing up, as I indicated earlier, and renting for a number of years, and to see the hand of God and moving in that direction. And so I attribute that not to myself, but more importantly to God, particularly in times we're living when jobs are insecure and things change so quickly, but the fact that we were able to purchase a home. And I think it's also important in terms of getting older that we have wills to make sure that the homes are left either to our children. We don't, and even when you get to the point of where you have some medical needs that you may not be able to handle, you have to sign your home over or go into nursing homes.
Yes.
So what advice would you give to people who are struggling with those kinds of decisions?
Well, you know, an example of having a house, real estate. When I bought my first house, I put $5,000 down and got a mortgage. When I sold that house 10 years later or so, I walked out of the settlement with a $60,000 check. So to people who don't have a house or they're thinking about it, there's equity buildup. That's the value of owning a house. If you rent, if I had rented for 10 years, I wouldn't walk, you know, there's nothing, but I was able to walk out of settlement with $60,000, for example. And I've purchased 2 other homes after that, one in Florida and another house in Pennsylvania. But when I sold house, I was able to make a profit. So to people out there that might be hesitant about owning a house, you have equity buildup. You have money that's grown. They can use that money for home improvements for their house, and like I said, for someone who might be ill. You know, if you have equity in the property, you can use the money for different things that's needed. So I guess to answer the question, equity buildup. That's one thing I learned. And when I bought my first house, my hand was shaking because I saw the mortgage amount, I saw how much I had to pay back monthly, right. And I was like, wow, you know, but, you know, God said, keep on going, which I did. And like I said, the equity buildup to anyone out there who's hesitant about buying a house is a key thing.
It's really interesting because go way back, and I bought my first home, and I think at that particular time they wanted your weekly salary to cover your monthly mortgage payment.
Yes.
So I was making about $68 a week, and I think my mortgage was like $84.
Yes.
So I had to get a part-time job. I got a part-time job at Horn & Hollis.
Yes.
Now, $64, you can forget about that today. Mm-hmm. But again, I still remember that, and yes. I'm just grateful to God as well for the blessings. So don't talk about so much about myself as much as the power of God, mm-hmm. and realizing it's not where you start, it's where you finish.
Right.
And then growing up, as you indicated. And I remember also very vividly that one of the reasons I had to drop out of high school is because my mother and father were separated. We were renting, mm-hmm. and the landlord died. Mm. And the city said, either you purchase a home, or else you have to move.
Yes.
And so I quit school so that I could go to work and we could keep our home.
Yes.
So I remember that. And I think the other thing is in terms of, you know, when the Lord calls us home, my wife and I, you know, whether we leave our children something. And I think it's so important to yes. leave your children not only some material gains, but also the love and legacy of your heart.
Yes.
And so I think there's so many values in home ownership.
Yes.
And also recognizing that for many African Americans, as well as many other minorities, yes. those opportunities are not there.
Right.
Because you need employment. And I mentioned again, you know, $64, so you can forget about $64 now.
Yes.
For a mortgage.
Yes.
Mortgages are $2,000-3,000 a month.
Yes.
You know? And you have to also have some kind of income that will support that.
Yes.
So when you talk about that and talk about, again, finding the right mortgage company so that the rates are in keeping with some degree of integrity, how would you feel about that as well?
I think that's important. There are some mortgage firms out there that will work with a buyer and share their knowledge of programs that they might qualify for. There are lenders out there who will, if someone's credit score is not where it should be, they have programs and systems to help them, education to help them get to where their credit score is at the right level. No one has to have a 800, 700 credit score. Some people can have a lower score But with the assistance of the lender, the right one, they were able to qualify. So yeah, I think that lenders play a big role, and you have to find the right ones that know about the programs and that can help be of service. The lenders, I feel that help, God is with them. God is leading them to, hey, these people want a house, let's do something to help them. Let's educate them. Part of one thing about being a realtor, I found that I'm still in teaching business, because I can refer lenders, I can talk with the buyers and educate them too. Some people just throw up their hands like, what's the use? And if they can afford a rent, because some people are paying these high rents, but if they look at owning the house versus what they're paying in rent, if they're paying that rent, they could own the house. They just have to be shown how they can do it.
I really appreciate this conversation. I spent some time with my sons talking about finance, and one of the comments my son has constantly made, Dad, you always got to watch your credit score. So tell us about the credit score.
Well, the higher the credit score, the easier it is to get a loan. If someone has a credit score 500, 600, that's considered fairly poor. It makes it harder for them to qualify for a loan. Also, they might have to pay a larger down payment. So your higher the credit score brings down what they ask for, for the down payment there. So if you want to put down less, raise up your score. Credit score means that they need to pay their bills on time. They need to review their Experian and TransUnion file, and it's free. They can go in there and they can check and see if some accounts that should be taken off are vanished and taken off. So they need to keep track of Experian, TransUnion, to make sure that their file is as clean as it should be. Sometimes things are not taken off, and that hurts the credit score. Don't be late on a payment, because if you have a history of paying late, then that's going to hurt your score too. So if you pay on time, review your credit score files, take out what shouldn't be there, have a plan. If credit cards, there's a certain limit that you should have for debt. So if you have 80% debt on your credit card, that's what they allow you, that's going to hurt. So try to have your debt down in 30% range or so that you have your debt ratio balance is low. And that hurts. I mean, that helps for credit scores.
You have really touched on something that's so important. These credit cards, and now these companies are giving you credit cards like they're giving you candy, and people are taking advantage of them. However, just paying on the interest, and it continues to grow. So I think you got to be careful how many credit cards you are actually using.
Yes.
And not allowing that bill to just continue to stay there, and you have to pay interest, and that doesn't go away. So you're paying high interest rate on these credit cards. And I know that they are attractive, but how many do you need? Some of our young people are just getting credit cards, and they have so much debt, it's hard to get out of it. And then when they want to buy a house or something else, it's difficult.
Yes, high balances on your credit cards that you owe is really a bad thing. I know it's a tempting thing. You get a credit card, and these young, especially the young folks, and they, well, I want those shoes. I'm going here. I'm going to fly, take a, and they use that card, but they didn't plan on their repayment schedule. They really need to have a plan in mind that if I do have certain balance on my credit card, what's my plan to pay it down? So they need to take pencil and paper and work out a plan. Okay, how each month, how much should I pay on that card, and I won't use that card again until it gets down to a certain level. So they should have a plan.
It's really amazing because also we've seen a lot of persons who are now home and they want to make an improvements and things on their home. But again, they've sometimes become disadvantaged when the prices are so high for materials and things of that nature. And so construction companies or remodeling facilities are charging enormous amount of dollars. And the time lag in terms of their ability to get the materials and to finish on time. So
Yes.
what has been your experience there?
Well, I think once again the equity line of credit. If they have that some equity built up, then they have the funds. They should get at least 3 bids from a contract from contractors. Get at least 3 bids. They need to make sure that the person on the contract has a time schedule when they're going to start the work and do the work. So I think with the contractors, you can go to 3 people. One person might be at $6,000, and then for the same work, somebody might be at $2,000. But you have to go get the bids and see what's out there. That way they will save the money. They won't waste their money. And it should be in the contract, it should be spelled out. Start time and also the end time. And ahead of time, when they do the bid, they should tell the homeowner how much the cost will be for labor and the materials, and it should not change, unless it should not change.
So tell me something else, Ed, because I know also growing up that people stayed in their home 30, 40 years. What is the average length of time a homeowner stays in that house before they relocate and go someplace else?
Well, my latest Realtor magazine from the National Organization of Realtors, 7 years is not right now the average time, 7 years. There are some people I've run across, they've lived in their homes for 30 years, 20 years, and so on and so forth. But the average time right now is like 7 years, and then people are moving. We live in a world now where people are mobile. People change jobs. Something happens with an older parent, they got to move back. So those things make moving and the mobility kind of faster now. About 7 years, but a lot of people still have been in their houses for 30, 40 years. Also, I'd like to add that some people are downsizing. The senior citizens, they don't want that house now. So now they also are moving to townhouses and smaller homes.
My wife and I talk all the time about the changing of our neighbors. We've seen persons come 3 or 4 years or even 6 or 7 and relocate. And as you indicated, there are many reasons why people do that, change of employment or other things that affect their overall lifestyle, things of that nature.
Yes.
So when you talk about home ownership and you talk about passing on to your children, those kind of things, how much value is there in terms of sharing with your children the need of purchasing a home?
Well, generational wealth is an important thing. Real estate is part of that generational wealth. It's important that the children are taught about these are the investments that we don't want you to spend. Keep it growing. The house, I'm going to leave the house. I'm going to leave the house to my son. Don't sell it unless you have to, but keep it going because equity keeps on building up. So generational wealth is a very, very important thing. Children need to know that. They need to be taught the value of money. Don't get the house. Don't get the portfolio, and then start spending. Don't be a spender, but be someone who's going to let those dollars keep on growing.
It's interesting because I've been privileged to pastor here for 35 years, and I've seen a change in our community when particularly African Americans were limited in terms of where housing was available. There were some neighborhoods, obviously, that were just not welcomed.
Yes.
But
yes.
hopefully some of those barriers are being broken down, even though I still believe that there's still some that exist that way.
When I first moved to Pennsylvania, we had some older folks in the neighborhood who were involved with housing. And they thought that my wife and I would be the perfect couple to be testers. This is like 1975, to be testers. That means that if someone's advertising their apartment, advertising their house, especially apartments, we would go and apply to or ask about the rent, the rental of the property. We were told numerous times it's not available. Oh, it's off the market. And then with the testers program, they would send a white couple in, sign them up. Come on, we'll sign you up. Oh, we'd love to have you. So discrimination in housing, I know here in Pennsylvania firsthand, 1975, I experienced it firsthand. It's real, it's still going on today. There's still going on today. The National Association of Realtors, Pennsylvania Association of Realtors, Montgomery County Realtors, they work hard to address the discrimination issue. It's still going on. I ran into some cases as an agent, and so it's still going on, but I think it's less. But the problem is still going on, and that should not be.
I also remember when it was told that an African American was about to sell his home, but they had to take down all the pictures and things so nobody would know that an African American lived there, those kind of things, which is unfortunate, but it's real. It's
real. Now that's a practice in a trade to tell the seller, just have, take down your pictures and all. Now, that's been told not only to African Americans that I've experienced in the field, but just take down the pictures. The person should visualize the house the way they might want to have it. So, but yeah, that was a big problem. I think too today it goes on. A person, I had my house for sale a few years ago. We thought we'd move to the shore, go back to Florida, for example. So the person came and looked at our house and wound up buying, they bought the house 2 doors down, similar house, similar square footage and everything, but they bought the house 2 doors down. So my wife and I said, I wonder. And that was about 8 years ago. Yeah.
So many things that affect our day-to-day living, housing and food disparities and all those kind of things. And at the same time, what about FHA? Do they still have that?
They do, and there's some programs that FHA has, which the prospective buyer needs to be well educated about, but they still have those programs.
What are the interest rates on those kind of houses?
They could be lower than the conventional rates, but they are the different programs. Each person qualifies, looking at their finances, but the FHA is there. I think I'm glad it's there. I'm glad the FHA is there, and that might help a person get into a home.
So tell me also, what about in terms of making sure your home is well kept? So not just in terms for yourself, but keeping the property value up. What about those areas?
The curb appeal is very important. Let's start outside the house.
So you say curb appeal?
The curb appeal.
It sounds like you're ready to preach. Curb appeal. Okay, let's hear what that means.
Well, make sure that the trees and bushes are trimmed right. Make sure that your sidewalk doesn't have cracks. Make sure that the grass doesn't get overgrown. Make sure that the shingles, everything on the outside of the house, make sure that, it's in top shape. Have a schedule when, homeowners should have a schedule when they're going to work on the outside, and sometimes it's more often than the inside, but then have a schedule there. Make sure the windows are in good shape. Make sure that the curtains hanging in the windows, when someone, my wife goes outside and she looks at the house to see how it looks. I think a lot of women will do that too. But go outside and look at your house and say, okay, and if you see something that should not be there, or that's a negative, then fix it. Make sure the driveway is well maintained. That could be a turn off if the driveway has cracks and oil stains. Make sure that's not happening there too. Make sure that the soffits and the outside of the house, things are not leaning over, and the gutters. So the curb appeal is very, very important. On the inside of the house, make sure that the furnace, change the filters and the furnace. Check on your AC unit. Make sure that that's working well. Make sure that the painting is what it should be. Take care of the carpeting and the rugs. Shampoo those. Make sure that there's anything in the wall like cracks that need repair. Fix those too. In the bathrooms, make the bathrooms attractive. Clean, neat, attractive. In the kitchen, which is very, very important, make sure that all the appliances work. Make sure the washer and the dryer, not the washer, make sure that the dishwasher, the stove, the microwave, and the refrigerator. If your refrigerator is making noise or there's leaks, invest in a new one. Get someone in there to fix it. The dining room, have a nice dining room, inviting for when people can look at it and say, oh yeah, I'm glad that they have this dining room. I want to sit there and have some dinner with my family. So just to make sure ceilings, there's no cracks in the ceiling or flaking. Make sure the ceilings and the walls are in good shape. Let's see, monitoring systems. Have a monitoring system, alarm that's working properly. So just the basics. If you just have your house the way you would want someone that came to visit to see. A nice, clean house, everything in working order.
So I'm wondering now whether or not you really talked to my wife, because Sandy and Tanya, my wife, they are very astute about the house. Mm-hmm. So my wife keeps the house. She's always looking at something that may need to be repaired or replaced. So I'm not sure I should be letting her watch this part, because you've already given her some ideas. She's probably going to look, okay, you got to do X, Y, Z, but it's so important.
It is.
This is our investment. We want to make sure our investment is well kept as much as humanly possible.
Yes.
So in terms of that, and again, to talk about home ownership and talk about, again, the blessing from God to be able to accomplish that. So many things happen, whether you're taking a 20-year mortgage or a 30-year mortgage, and how one, depends upon God, because things could change in 20 days, I suppose.
That's right.
So it really is a step of faith. And I remember my first mortgage, which was the HFA, and 30 years now. Oh my God, 30 years. But we were blessed in that regard, and didn't have to wait the 30 years.
Yes.
But I certainly appreciate this information and inspiration as well, because I think, again, as African Americans and people of all colors, home ownership is something we strive for, and something that hopefully we even think about, dream about.
That's right.
I know now there are those who have a summer home and all those kind of things. What would you say about persons who have a summer home? What are responsibilities there? So even though they may be there during a certain period of time, when you talk about summer home, what do they need to do to make sure that that home is also well kept?
Well, I think that the house should be winterized if they're not going to be there during the winter time. No one wants to have a house that has a busted pipe, and then they have to pay $1,000 to fix that problem. So the house should be maintained. Make sure that there's a way that you can see the house too. There's ways that you can put the cameras in now. You can see the house if you want to see what's going on around there. Make sure that the property is well maintained. Even if you have to hire the local person to go there and make sure the outside looks good. Make sure everything is working in the property too. I think a summer house is very, very important for the children and generations to come. They can always say, I'm going to the summer house, mom and dad left this, and the memories that that you have. So I think it's very, very important for the generation of family that's going to be in there. But it has to be maintained. You have to make sure that you're not going to be there for some months. Make sure the roof is in good shape. Have someone that locally go take take a look and inspect her. Have a property management firm. I think that's important. If you're in New Jersey, but the house is in Massachusetts, have a local property manager that will go there, check on the house property to make to make sure everything is working fine. So with a summer house, property management, I think is a big thing. Pay the money, but it's worth it.
So something else I want to ask you, because as you know, we are a predominantly African-American church, and we push the envelope to be a multicultural church, and have spent a lot of time in terms of developing relationships. We have a wonderful relationship now with St. Andrew's Evangelical Church in Percy, and been talking about some tough issues around race.
Yes.
And being honest about it and talking about privilege and those kind of things.
Yes.
So tell me, if you can, have you experienced any racism when it comes to people coming to the office and looking for an agent, and they may decide they would rather have somebody of their own color than yourself?
Since I started in real estate, that has not happened. Someone who didn't want me because of my race. When people come into the office, they know who they're looking for most of the time. And so I haven't had that experience since I've started, that they don't want me.
So when people come in, who directs them to an agent?
Well, we have an agent who's called Floor Time. They're at the front desk. So if someone comes in and they don't have an agent, then the agent on Floor Time, for example, will take care of that client. So there's no coming in the office and saying, oh no, I don't want this person on Floor Time, I want somebody else. Right. No. The agent that's on floor time, if they don't have an agent, working for them, will take care of that client.
Now that's for your particular realtor?
Yes, in my office.
Does that work everywhere?
I don't know about everywhere else. I try to stay focused. God has me focused on what I need to do, so I don't get into that talk with other companies.
We were blessed in our last home, my wife and I, and it's been a number of years, but the agent we had was really sensitive and very concerned about our home and the home we would actually purchase. Mm-hmm. He was very patient. Mm-hmm. He was a person of Caucasian, mm-hmm. and has called on numerous times, even after we were there, years, and how are you making out? I remember home. It was a wonderful experience, and I probably was not the best client, because I had to kind of, okay, what are we looking for? I don't want to do this. That's out of my range. And
yes.
My wife tells me now that our youngest son, Brandon, said, Dad, this is the house we're going to buy. Even though he wasn't working, he was working, but he wasn't going to pay the mortgage. Yes. And so we laugh about that at times, because I'm saying that. And we bought what's called at that time, it was a spec house. So it was a new development, and I thought really it was way out of my line financially, but the
Yes.
Lord has blessed us. So
Yes.
I give God credit for all of that. I
Yes,
recognize,
yes.
but again, I was kind of gun shy. Is this? And we were not, in fact, we were not even looking at new homes at that time,
Yes.
and
Yes.
I thought I had an idea where we were going to go, and we just couldn't. But we've been blessed with
Yes.
good neighbors, blessed in the home ourselves, and
Yes.
so I do appreciate again the blessings God has given to us, and our agent as well. He was very patient, as I said earlier, and he offered his own personal experiences, and certainly I appreciate that. And like I said before, we have several agents here in the church, and I believe that they're people of integrity. It's not about them making money. It's about
That's right.
trying to provide people with a dream of their lives, and
That's right.
owning a home is huge.
That's right.
And sometimes I think we don't take full advantage of it in terms of recognizing it's a gift from God, and see so many people who are homeless, live in the streets.
Yes.
And the
Yes.
fact that we have a home to go to is a blessing.
Yes.
So what would you say as we draw close to the concluding time here? What advice would you give to persons who are homeowners, or those who are seeking to purchase a home, or those who are seeking to repair the home? What advice would you give?
Well, getting involved, buying or selling a house, it's like a little journey. Be ready for disappointments. No, that's not the house I really want. No, it's too much money. Just like you said, it's a journey. You might have to go through X amount of houses to find the one that you really want. So it's like tighten up the seatbelt. It's not going to be a quick thing. Agents like yours, he sounds like a wonderful person. The money, the most important thing is being of service. And being of service, it might take 30 days, it might take longer than that, 45 days, it might take 60 days to find the right house or to sell, or like to sell. So the seller or the buyer should be ready for the long haul, because finding the right house is important. That's a house where you want the right backyard. You want the house where you you pull up in the driveway. You want to pull up in the right drive. You want that everything that's going to appeal. It has to be right. So it's not a quick fix thing. People who an agent. I want to make the quick buck. That's not the way they should be thinking. They should be thinking of serving. First thing I say, the first thing meeting a seller and a buyer is to sit down with the person in relationships, ask about their goals, not what the agent wants for them to have as goals, but what does the buyer or seller want? What are their goals? What's their game plan? You got to find out. Well, are you going to sell and move out of state? Are you going to sell and move to something smaller? The big thing now is that with the pandemic, pools. Buyers want houses with pools. So you had that one-on-one conversation first. What do you want? Well, I want the pool. Okay, because with the pandemic, that's a big thing. Those houses are selling like popcorn popping, because they want to have their children in the house, and when they want to have some fun time, they have the pool, they have a yard. So that's a big thing. But you won't know that unless you talk with the client, talk with the seller, talk with the buyer. The wife might have a different idea of what she wants versus the husband or the spouse, whatever. So you have to find out. You need to hear them out, and then once you get their goals known, then you can also find out the area that they want to live in. That's important too. You ask them, what area do you want to move to? Whatever you want to buy in. Okay. Do you want to buy a place that has a park where there's a walking path? Do you want to buy a place that has the mall? You like to go shopping. So you have to find that out. I think with the relationships, you first have that conversation, and God will guide the conversation. If you think about the other person, God will guide what you hear and what you take down and what you feel. That's important for that family. That's what they want. You know, when it comes to the schools, I mean, they will tell you they want a certain type of school. Example, my wife and I, we moved from Pennsylvania to Florida. And because I was in the sales business once way another life, there's something called a Kohl's directory. And I share that with the folks too. You know, you want a certain place, well, go to the Kohl's directory. You can go right to the public library. Book is free. They list the areas A, B, C, D, E. They list the areas by school districts too. So if a mom says, you know, I want a district where my child's going to get a good education, well, you go to Kohl's directory, you can find out about the districts. There's information there. We moved to Florida, and we wanted for our son, because we were making a major move, and he was going to middle school. It's a major move. So we wanted to have one of the best school districts, but the housing arranged that we can afford too. So we used the Kohl's directory and found a beautiful house, beautiful neighborhood, and the school district, which is most important. He went to middle school, to high school there, one of the best high schools in the area there. So you know, I think that getting the information is very, very key. I got off track a little bit there, but
well, no, I certainly appreciate that. And one of the things we have done here at Bethlehem is develop a business directory.
yes,
And we'll make sure you include it. And I indicated earlier, we have several realtors. Priscilla McDonald, who's a wonderful woman of God.
yes,
We also have Ida Calloway, and even as a caretaker, she still has a heart to share. So it's like a ministry.
yes.
And certainly we appreciate
Yes.
your sharing today prayerfully. This information that you have given will be beneficial to all of us. And so I thank you so much for sharing your wealth of knowledge, and our prayers are with you and your family. And just thank you, Ed, for allowing God to use you. And he uses us in different ways. And so you're being used now to provide people with information as well as directions in terms of what to look for when they purchase a home and how to maintain their home and the importance of home ownership and all those other areas. So thank you. We want to thank our congregation for their willingness to be part of what Bethlehem is doing now in terms of bringing to the table community leaders, representatives from every walk of life. So tonight we had a realtor, and other evenings we'll have persons from education and health and all the areas that affect our lives daily. God wants us to have a holistic life. So I pray tonight you have been blessed as you've shared. Don't forget, every Thursday night at 7 o'clock, we bring to you Table Talk at the House of Bread. This is just one of our many ministries. We have also Sunday evening with the pastor. You may see Sunday evening at 7 o'clock. We have Movement Monday on Mondays at 7 p.m. led by our assistant pastor, Reverend Sean Triplin. And we also have worship services, 9 a.m. and 11:15 a.m. And we're moving right now to make sure that our services are hybrid, so you can either come into the house of God and or see us online as you're watching tonight. So thank you so much. Look forward to visiting you again in your home.